one of the really interesting things, and Bob, I'm sure, is getting ready to wants to talk more about this,
Mm.
but is the population projections that you make. There's some very interesting numbers about when we will
Mhm.
no longer be replacing ourselves,
Mhm.
and will be almost entirely dependent on immigration for growth. And
Mhm.
so can you talk a little about that? And I would say, your immigration numbers are based, if I recall, on November of 2024 policies.
Mhm.
And so what are the implications of, let's say, much more constrained immigration growth? Um, or do you think your numbers are pretty conservative in terms of immigration growth already?
Oh, okay. No, it's an important point, and that ties together with our the long-term growth and how that feeds into the budget outlook. Um, so immigration is part of the demographic analysis that goes into our long-term projections and into our 10-year projections as well. We have so there's three key demographic aspects. One is immigration, two is fertility, the number of children per mother, and then three is mortality. And obviously mortality is important as well. And we've seen big changes in mortality during the pandemic, which interrupted a period of improving longevity. And actually, I'm sorry, demographics are really interesting. So another word of
Yeah.
mortality, right, is we had the opioid epidemic, and lots of bad things happening there, and firearms. So we had an increase in mortality among prime age people, among people in their 20s and 30s, and that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we had sort of people in their 20s dying and people in their 70s living longer than they had before,
Mm.
and all those come together. The immigration, which you had asked about, we saw a surge of immigration that started in 2021, and so 21, 22, 23, we added millions of people into the U.S. Economy, into the labor force, and the people who came in were disproportionately working age men. And there are women, there are children, of course, but
Yeah.
disproportionately we added people with a very high propensity to work. And again, there's no normative implication there. It's not saying this is the right thing, the wrong thing, and immigration is a whole topic. But economically and budgetarily for the federal government, it was an increment. Whereas for state and local
Right.
governments, it was much different. We have that changing. President Biden in June of 2024 had an executive order that had the result of reducing certain types of immigration, and that's
Hmm.
embedded in our long-term budget outlook. Our next update that we'll do sometime over the summer, I'm not sure exactly when, will include the actions taken in the second Trump administration that look to a further reduced immigration inflows. And so we'll account for that in the future.
Interesting. And I think it was like, and again, these are just guesses, right? But it's like by 2033, you all are projecting that the American we will no longer be reproducing ourselves
Mm.
enough.
Yeah.
We'll actually see a population decline in 2033 if we don't have a certain amount of immigration to supplement that.
That's right. As
Right.
more than 100% of the population growth, by the end of our 10-year window, will come from immigration growth. And actually, there's a nuance here also. I mean, what you said is, by far the first order thing for, for the budget and the economy. What's interesting is that the decline in fertility, a large part of that has come from the age of the first child coming later, meaning the mother's
Mhm.
age of having the first child moving later. So it's fewer teenage women having babies so it's kind of this, like,
We
many
worked
people
for
would say,
many years to
yeah,
try to get to that result, didn't we?
yeah,
So,
yeah. So it's just an important way of saying
yes.
that, kind of the
Yeah.
normative and the what's good for the economy and the budget and what's good kind of socially, what people would look at as good socially, are not always the same. And it's really not up to CBO to say what's the right thing or the wrong thing.